What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Absolute Auction Podcast. The trio is back together, guys, the first time this season. Adam, welcome back. As always, Auction down there. How you doing, bud?
Good, man. Happy to be here. Got football season starting up, I think, pretty soon. So excited to talk about some wide receivers and maybe put a little dynasty spin on it. Although it's not my forte, I'm more of a redraft guy, but I will do my best with some dynasty advice.
That's right. We'll be talking some free agents, aren't we going to, Mark?
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Yeah, we had some signings today. Legal tampering is again back to legal. So we're getting a lot of news flowing in, and we're looking to break down how it might affect our rosters coming up this year.
That's right. And our rosters could be subjectively effective in a positive and a negative way. And looking at some of these signings, it's kind of crazy. So the legal tampering started at noon on Monday today.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed like within 1 or 2 minutes later, sign. I'm like, so is that really legal tampering? Legally started at noon, or did it really start yesterday? And someone was just sending pigeon notes to someone to these players to kick it off.
I think it kind of started because Davante Adams was cut right before the league year, so I think he was actually able to make this deal with the Rams ahead of the legal tampering period. So I think that might have actually helped kind of kick us off from the beginning. Him being one of the biggest names that's out there on the free agent market for a wide receiver.
Yeah, that was Sunday afternoon. Davante Adams signed a 2-year, $46 million deal with the LA Rams. That was crazy. I did not see that coming. Adam, how did you feel about that signing when you first saw that appear on your phone?
I'm excited for Adams. I think he's going to fit really, really well in LA. They got Stafford back. I think that, I tweeted this earlier today. I don't think another 1,000-yard season and potentially 6-day touchdowns for him in 2025 is out of question at all. If you're thinking, 1,000 yards over the course of just the regular season for the, not in the fantasy playoffs, he only needs to average 70 yards a game, and if he's going to be playing, both the slot and on the perimeter for a guy who's just such a great route runner, just a, tactician, with his routes, I think that's well within, the possibilities for Adams. I think he's going to do really well in St. Louis, and I think he's going to be a huge red zone target for Stafford. And I think he's going to have a great year.
I wish he could be in St. Louis, so I miss the St. Louis Rams, but we're the LA Rams still. We have the LA Rams and LA Chargers, and everyone confuses those teams. I know it's so hard to always remember that, but man, if they were in St. Louis. Mark, kicking it to you from a dynasty point of view, Davante Adams, 32 years old. The talk of Cooper Kupp either being traded or released if they can't find the correct trade partner. If we're getting him right now, are you still willing to spend, let's see, $7, $8, $9, $10 range for Davante Adams in the startup?
Yeah, absolutely. I think really, especially if you're a win now team when you're going into your auction startup. I think a guy like Davante Adams, that it will probably go around $10 because of his age and where he is. But really for this year, again, if you're competing for this year, Davante, with this move, making sure solidifying that he has a good quarterback in Stafford, it really makes me feel confident that he's in that gold tier level for me, that he could be a top 16 guy for the season this coming year. That's value to me. And honestly, for $10, or if you're trading for he probably is on the edge where you don't want to give a second round pick maybe at the end of this year, but if you're contending, I don't see anything wrong with that. I also see, as far as Puka is concerned, they're both going to get really well fed. I think it's just going to be a very well funneled target distribution between the two of them, where everyone was like, oh, maybe Jordan Whittington or, Tutu Atwell. I think those two are going to be on the field most of the time, and they're going to get a large majority of the targets. I could see both of them finishing in the top 15 this year.
Yes, us Jordan Whittington truthers can go ahead and put that to rest now. He is dead to me because that kills all my dynasty values with him. But I'm 100% with you on Davante Adams. For like, if I already have him on my fantasy team or want to get him on my fantasy team, I am willing to trade a second round pick for him as of today to get him on my team, knowing that Puka Nacua is going to be there. He's not going to really affect Puka Nacua, I don't think, in a bad way. I think it's going to be a positive way. And I'm also buying Matt Stafford again. Yes, Matt Stafford's at the back end of his career, but if I can get him on the cheap, knowing that, if I'm pushing for if I'm a contender pushing and I'm just that quarterback short, I think of, having that nice quarterback too. Matt Stafford would be a nice spy for me on that one. So, Adam, so in a redraft perspective, though, how do you feel about Puka Nacua and Davante Adams?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Puka is probably going to, command, 10 to 11 targets a game. He's probably going to be one of the league leaders in targets, and I think Adams is probably going to command like 8 to 9 targets a game. The entire offense is going to run through Adams, Nacua, and Kyron Williams. I mean, those are the three guys, and Stafford being there is only going to help both of them, the whole team. And I think you can, in redraft, you can have Adams as like a mid wide receiver too, and his AAV last year, let me look. I believe it was, let me see.
I would say it was in the 20s, if I remember. Or maybe he might
Yeah,
have been high
yeah,
teens.
it was. It was in the mid 20s. It was $23. If you can get him for that price or even anything less, if people are worried about his age for any reason in redraft, I think that's an absolute steal. Like I said, I think he's going to get, if close to, if not 1,000 yards and 8 to 10 touchdowns this season. I think he's going to have a great year in LA.
All right, Mark, before I rudely cut you off, what were you getting ready to say?
Oh, I was just gonna say that I would be trading for Stafford if I didn't have him everywhere already because I have bought the Stafford's too old dip for like 3 years and it's helped me win pretty well in my dynasty league. So Stafford's still gonna be good this year. Put on one of the best offensive performances against the Super Bowl champion Eagles in the playoffs. And honestly, is really, if you think about it now, like who's, as far as contenders, I think like the Rams are probably right there and maybe even ahead of Detroit at this point because they at
What?
least are proving to win. Hey, they're proving that they can win games in the playoffs. Not that they're not a great offensive team
That
during
is
the
true.
year, but Rams still have that championship pedigree. They win games in the postseason, and that counts a lot for me. So I've been on the Rams, I've been on Stafford, and I'm happy to continue on with him.
Continuing on, we're going to move on to DK Metcalf here. Traded to the Steelers, a huge trade that was 5 years, $150 million contract to go there and fight for number 14, because you have George Pickens who also wears number 14, DK Metcalf wore number 14. So who's going to get number 14 this season? Who the hell's going to throw to who's going to be the quarterback throwing to these guys? That's the biggest question I want to know is, sure, okay, you get Metcalf for 5 years. That just goes to show they're not really into Pickens that much. But who's throwing the ball? Justin Fields just signed with the Jets. So, and then now there's rumors of, Russell Wilson possibly coming back, and then a dark horse of Aaron Rodgers all of a sudden popping in. Like, Mark, what do we do now, like with DK or with our DK Metcalf shares?
So right now I'm kind of looking at this as kind of like a lateral move. I think as far as value and even performance wise, last year DK was a wide receiver 3. He's capable of being a wide receiver 2. It's tough. I mean, like it's tough to say outright that he's going to be that, but he's a solid wide receiver 3, pretty consistent guy when when his quarterback play is solid. I think this trade probably indicates that they were likely to stick with Russell Wilson, but that's just my initial thought. They had a pretty good chemistry in Seattle when they were both playing there. Aaron Rodgers could come. That doesn't excite me nearly as much. But I mean, I still kind of see it as a lateral move. They have a better line. They're probably going to be just as run heavy as Seattle was. But their line seems to be better in Pittsburgh. Hopefully, if they bring in a veteran like Russell, that I think that's still enough for me to say like he's going to probably be the primary target receiver on that team. and that should count for something. I imagine he'll still be pretty productive there. It really kind of depends on what's going on with George Pickens too. If he stays, if he goes, because I don't see it being a very pass heavy offense, especially if it is the two of them. But at the same time, if he leaves, maybe he gets a better target share of that smaller pie, and maybe that's a little better. It's hard to exactly say right now because the team is still kind of unfinished. But I still kind of got him in that high end wide receiver 3, like with wide receiver 2 upside sort of area. He's still in the prime of his career, so I'm not like having age kind of ding him yet. But you want there to be some consistency soon because that time is not that far away.
No, not at all. Like Adam, like I'm gonna kick it over to you. Like, how do you feel about this trade with Metcalf going there? Are you buying him at the same price as we were last year, or are you looking to more to pass on him, let it be someone else's headache? Because this could be a wide receiver duo that could be more of a weekly headache than a weekly benefit.
Yeah, I think you guys nailed it. I think it is, like Mark said, a completely lateral move for Metcalf. There's just too much uncertainty for me at the quarterback position. I think that if they were to go out and sign Rodgers or bring back Wilson, that really doesn't move the needle for me at all. They're going to be run heavy again. They're going to let their defense, keep them in games. They're not going to force the ball. They're not going to throw a ton. Metcalf, other than I think like his rookie year or sophomore season, like he really hasn't ever been more than a boom or bust wide receiver 3. And I think people sort of fell in love with his athletic ability, his traits, and just were like, oh man, DK, he's, an automatic set it and forget it wide receiver 1. He's not. He's not anymore anyway. I would, like you said, I'd rather leave this, to another drafter who wants to take a chance on him. He went for about $22 last year in redraft. And for me, that just feels too steep right now to invest in.
No, I totally agree. Like investing in right now is kind of hard. Yes, I totally agree. Totally wide receiver 3. I actually think this affects George Pickens more than it benefits him because yes, he'll be more as the wide receiver 2, but is Justin Fields really going to look at him that much? I don't know. Who's going to, is it going to be Metcalf's game? Is it going to be Freiermuth? But then the biggest question I have is, what does this mean for Jaxon Smith-Njigba back in Seattle? Now that we finally see that Sam Darnold's going to be signing there, because for some reason Seattle was just stripping that whole team. There was no receivers, no quarterback. Russell Wilson. Geno Smith went to the Raiders. DK Metcalf goes to Steelers. It was just, and then Tyler Lockett was released. So Smith-Njigba getting Sam Darnold, does that make him still wide receiver 1, or is he more of a wide receiver 2, Mark, in your perspective, based on your tiers?
Well, he's in my gold tier. He's on the higher end of my wide receiver of that gold tier for me.
Still,
I would say the thing that the long term for Jaxon Smith-Njigba, I think this is great. I mean, he's the number 1 wide receiver in that offense, and he's probably going to get the primary share of all the targets that go that way. So that's great for him. Sam Darnold, middle range quarterback. I wouldn't say, we're not talking about, world beater Sam Darnold. We're talking about, middle of the road, good quarterback in a good system. Is this a good system? I'm not really sure. We're not, the offensive line leaves a lot to be desired. They got rid of a lot of free agents as you just listed there. So I imagine they're going to be probably a run heavy team that likely has a hard time getting the run going because their line's not great. And then they're probably still having to throw to JSN in garbage time, so that's probably good. But it's like, okay, is this a great offensive ecosystem? It kind of feels very much like, putting a lot of your stock in Garrett Wilson, on the, and pricing him a little too high. You don't want to get to that point where they're in a really bad ecosystem where even though they're a really talented player that, things always seem to go wrong. This kind of worries me for the offensive stability standpoint. But like talent and his situation are awesome. So I feel like he's probably a great dynasty buy for the long term. This year really it just remains to be seen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm
It's
so
hard
nervous.
Exactly.
I'm nervous this year.
I'm nervous.
It's like I don't know what to do. It's like I'm having a hard time trying to buy into it. It's like I don't know what Sam. I mean, Sam Darnold took him 6 years to actually show up as something as like a reasonable quarterback. I still think it's system. I'm glad he got paid. Good for him. But Adam, are you buying Jaxon Smith-Njigba? I always struggle with that name. I should just make like a TikTok of me just saying his name over and over again and screwing it up because I cannot say it. But are you buying him as a wide receiver 1 in redraft if you're going into the summer right now?
Yeah, I think I am. I think I mentioned before that I think that Puka Nakua, when we were talking about that whole thing with Adams, that he could be a league leader in targets. I think it could also be possibly JSN. I mean, who else do they have on their team right now? Jake Bobo.
Yeah,
I
basically
mean, is
the
it
big
going to
name.
be? Yeah, I mean, I don't know who else Darnold is really going to be throwing to. The problem, like you guys said, was their offensive line is absolutely atrocious. Was Darnold just a product of the Kevin O'Connell system? He was playing indoors. Now he's going to be playing outdoors in really bad weather. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think for redraft, you can probably still consider him a low end wide receiver 1. I think this helps possibly Ken Walker as well. And I'm going to say this right now. This might be a little controversial, but I think potentially if Seattle does not sign a wide receiver or draft a wide receiver, really high, I actually think a low key winner in this whole free agency period could end up being Noah Fant because he could end up taking a lot of those targets that was left vacated by Metcalf, by Tyler Lockett. So keep your eyes on for Noah Fant if you're drafting a tight end late. But yeah, I mean, I think for JSN, he is still a wide receiver 1 in redraft. I'm a little uncertain with Darnold and the offensive line, but he could just get massive volume this year, and really, I think that's all we're really looking for in fantasy.
That's right. It is volume. And speaking of volume, I mean, look at Christian Kirk there getting traded to the Texans there. Seventh round pick. Whoop-de-doo. Hey, we'll take it, but that team needs a lot of work. And what I understand about this team is, so the team had injured wide receivers. They lost Tank Dell to injury. They lost Stephon Diggs to injury. So what better thing to do than trade for an injury-prone wide receiver in Christian Kirk? Mark, looking at it, is Christian Kirk actually an upgrade over Tank Dell? And does this benefit CJ Stroud as a better QB1?
Well, I mean, I think it helps this year. Tank Dell is not going to be playing all of 2025. So you can see this as a stopgap. And I believe the way the contract works out, he's got a 1-year deal with a chance to sign on for another year, I guess, after that. But I don't know. I kind of like Christian Kirk as a nice vet. I think he's obviously not going to be the number 1 in that offense. That's obviously going to be Nico Collins. And I think he's kind of like a nice complement to Collins, maybe. I think he'll probably play a lot of slot work and, maybe head outside from time to time. I don't see this as also like a stop, like the Texans can't add somebody else in the draft necessarily. I think that could be still in the cards, but I think as a role player and like just like a decent veteran, I don't mind having Kirk on the team while they're trying to figure out exactly what's going on with Tank Dell. But I think they could also hit this wide receiver thing from a lot of angles. They do need quite a few, unless they're staying in house with guys like John Mechie or Xavier Hutchinson. Like if they seem to like one of those players a good amount, but I don't really know if that's exactly how it's going to shake out or not. The thing that kind of bothers me about the value here is, again, they just got rid of their left tackle and Laramie Tunsil in a trade to Washington, which doesn't make me feel that great about Stroud. I think like any possible bump you'd think for Christian Kirk being on the team Probably gets lost and then some with the Laramie Tunchel trade. So I'm a little worried there. But I still think Christian Kirk, decent player. He'll still probably have a good year. Probably won't play all the games for you. Well, that's fine. But I think he'll have a pretty decent season by his standards. Not sure if it's necessarily fantasy relevant, but maybe bye week fill-in relevant. Maybe back into your bench relevant. But
And that's a lot of fantasy managers looking at him in the dynasty startups. I see him at $2 range, so $2, $3 range, not a bad deal. I'm willing to buy at that price. Definitely nice piece to have on your bench, nice bench depth or bye week replacement that you need, especially if you have if you play with flex positions. That would definitely be a good guy to have. But Adam, is he still gonna be a bench player in redraft, do you think, or you think more of potential to be wide receiver 3?
I view him more as like a high end flex play in redraft, and Kirk, he played 75% of his snaps last year out of the slot. So is he even really going to be on the field when the Texans go into 2 wide receiver sets? I don't know. And again, he's probably not going to play every game. He's probably going to miss a couple games, but he could have some really great numbers, in PPR. I mean, if he gets you, 9 to 10 points a game, that's a flex play for sure. But like Mark said, they just lost Tunsil, one of the best tackles in the league. So I don't think that helps. But he's not, unless I can get him for really, really cheap. He's not someone that I'm probably going to be flirting with, but I think he can be a good flex play for you.
So if you threw him out there, you say Christian Kirk $1. If someone said $2, you just let it go.
So if I had to, I would probably spend $3 on him, make that one more bet, but I don't think I'm going any higher than that.
So yeah, no more than $3. I would probably do the same thing. Maybe I'd get him out there at 1 just to make him be a bench filler for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I'm going the other way, and I'm just gonna say $1, and I'm not going to 3 if somebody goes 2. I'm not again, but he's on the back. Especially we're talking dynasty, where he's on the back end of his career, and I don't know if especially near the end of the draft, if you got players you got in mind, I don't know if throwing the extra $2 on Christian Kirk to see if somebody will go to 4, or I don't know if he's worth the $3 necessarily, because again, those dynasty benches can get pretty long and you need those dollars. So
yeah,
I'd probably say stop at 1 and call it 2, but anything could happen, I suppose. He's still been a decent receiver. It's just, again, usually health.
and then speaking of getting the bag, we're going to move on to Chris Godwin here. 3 years, $66 million deal to stay with the Bucs. Everyone was so nervous that he was going to go to the Jaguars after the Christian Kirk release and Liam Cohen, being the head coach there. But no, he's coming back for another 3 more years with Baker Mayfield. Now, Godwin's coming off injury. Do you think he picks up right where he left off? Mark, I'll kick it over to you.
I think he'll still have that. There's going to be that worry, right, that he might still be, injured, and it might take a minute to actually come back, and be fully right. I think it's really going to take the player feeling right. It's going to take Godwin to actually feel right on the field before we can really know for sure. I don't know. I think he probably still has, he can give you wide receiver 1 weeks. He's been able to show that. I don't necessarily think I can trust him, or anybody's going to sell, trade him on the thought that they can trust that he's going to be like a long-term asset like that because of all the injuries. But he's been good. He's still got some prime years left, and I think it's like a wide receiver 2, 3. Yeah, you're happy to have him on your team.
Yeah, I'd be more comfortable with having him as a wide receiver 3, to be honest with you. I mean, He's already coming at age 29. If I can get him as wide receiver 3 in somewhere in the $7 to $10 range, I'm willing to buy that all day long. Just like how Davante Adams is. But pairing him back up with Baker Mayfield, I love Baker Mayfield. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks. I've been with him ever since he was at Oklahoma. So I love it how this helps him out. This is going to help Mike Evans out. I love this offense all in general this year. This offense is going to kick up and keep on going. Adam, on your perspective, though, are you buying Chris Godwin still at cost, or are you gonna take a back seat and you think it's more wide receiver 3/flex play still in redraft?
No, I'm buying him. I'm all over the Bucks offense this year. And like you said, I think really the biggest winner in this whole thing is Baker Mayfield. I'm not sure. I mean, he was the quarterback 4 last year in all of fantasy. I mean, he had an amazing season, and before Godwin got hurt, he was just having like just this unbelievable year. I mean, he was just like unstoppable. And then he got hurt. I think it was like just during like garbage time. It really sucks because he didn't even need to be out there, and he got just really, really hurt. But yeah, I think he bounces back in a big way. This helps Mayfield. This helps the entire offense. He and Mike Evans possibly could retire both as Buccaneers, which would be pretty cool. And I think this helps Bucky Irving as well in redraft and even in Dynasty too. I mean, Irving, he's not going to see a lot of loaded boxes just because of that offense. And again, while it might be hard for Mayfield to, to finish as the quarterback 4, he's gonna finish in a, top 6, top 7 quarterback for fantasy next year. That's absolutely doable. And I'm all over this Buccaneers offense for 2025.
Yeah, and it sucked too that he went down so early last season. It was week 7 against Baltimore. He went down in a meaningless, pointless game, and to that point, he already had 5 touchdowns, and he was basically averaging around a little more than 15 points per game. So that was a heck of a PPR machine for us. Yeah. We were enjoying it last season.
I've got a little game we're gonna play here real quick. So
let's go for it.
I put Chris Godwin in keep trade cut. Okay. And this is where Dynasty gets a little interesting and screwy with me. Let's start with one that's not so spicy, but so Chris Godwin and the 202 in a 2025 draft. So I guess 14 picks, right? So the 14th overall pick. Godwin of the 14th pick.
I would take Godwin still.
Okay.
Barely. Now here, I'm getting there.
For Did I just lose you guys? Nope, I got you. No. Okay, my fault. So for the next one then, I guess it really is going to depend on if you're rebuilding or not, but Godwin or Mike Evans.
I mean,
I think production wise, I would still say Evans probably.
Yeah, I love the touchdown upside. I love the receiving yard upside with Mike Evans, the deep threat. He can get next thing you know, you have 1 point some points, and then one play later you're up to over 10 points. So that's what I like. And plus, he's not injured right now. He's not coming off an injury like Godwin. So I'd rather have Evans right now.
Yeah, I think really it says like you can do a lot with your second round pick in a dynasty draft if you want a pretty decent player too.
Well, especially like this year, like looking at this rookie class, I've been seeing a lot more running backs, tight end here, tight end there, running backs. The wide receivers are very dead, so I can see a lot of people trading these second round picks to get these veteran wide receivers. And then moving on to one of our last guys. This one I actually was not surprised about because I actually thought this team for sure needed someone. And that's Marquise Brown staying with the Chiefs for one more season. So he just signs a 1-year deal. This seems like a no-brainer with what we've seen with, Rashee Rice and now Xavier Worthy having an issue over the weekend. So, Adam, kicking it off to you, my friend. Marquise Brown. He kind of faltered on us last season. He got injured so early in the beginning of the offseason. It was during, I think, one of the preseason games where he was basically off the rest of the season. We didn't get to use him. Are you willing to buy Marquise Brown as, let's say, a wide receiver too because of what he has done in the past prior to all these injuries?
No. Not buying Marquise Brown as a wide receiver too. I think this helps Patrick Mahomes more so, than anyone else on the Chiefs. But Mahomes just spreads the ball around too much. Kelsey's coming back. Rice will be back, assuming, pending probably a minor suspension, possibly the same thing with Xavier Worthy. I don't really want any piece of the Chiefs passing offense, to be honest with you. Mahomes is not, from a fantasy perspective, he hasn't really done real well in the last couple of years. I'm probably just avoiding the Chiefs offense. altogether, to be honest with you, unless Mahomes' auction value goes down and you can get him for less than cost. I'm probably just avoiding the whole offense.
How about you, Mark? From a dynasty perspective, are you buying Marquise Brown? Let's see. Trying to think if he's like $1 or $2. That's the only thing I can guess he's at right now.
He's probably gonna go for $1, I imagine. Like he's at best he's a wide receiver 4, but what you can maybe glean from this is that, if Rice is out early in the season, if Worthy is out early in the season, he's maybe not a bad just opening to the season kind of guy to get you. Hey, even if it's just somebody that you can raise their value so that you can trade them.
Yeah.
I think he's one of those guys that's gonna probably get really, even in redraft, go really late, and you'll be able to pick him up, and he'll probably give you like some flex value during the first 6 weeks of the season. That's kind of where I see him this year, and then it remains to be seen after that. But really, for this price for the Chiefs, it is really kind of a no-brainer. And I don't know. I think you might be able to get something more than wide receiver 4 value for him if he has a nice opening to the season. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if you have a nice opening to the season, trade him right off the bat. I mean, that's going to be your sell high moment if you have him, because if you tried selling him last year, there was no good deals out there because he was injured. This year, with the issues that they have, Adam just said, they spread the ball, or Patrick Mahomes spread the ball around quite a bit. We're all kind of three like hesitant on Marquise Brown. He has a big game. Someone wants him, sell him. I take a 3rd round pick. I take a 4th round pick for it. Just take the 4th round pick and run with it. All right, guys. Then we'll head up with some quick hitters here to see if it's worth talking about or not. And that will be Josh Palmer signing a 3-year deal with the Buffalo Bills. $36 million. That one kind of surprised me. Surprised you guys at all?
I don't know if he was ever a Harbaugh guy. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if this is just his contract is ending. They were so desperate for wide receivers last year. Like, they had absolutely nothing on the roster. With
Quentin
with Harbaugh
Johnston.
coming in. Yeah, Quentin Johnson and just in case it was really bad, Cornelius Johnson. So like, it's I can't tell if it was like, I think it might just be that like they just weren't as interested as the last regime. And not that Josh Palmer's not a pretty decent player for what he is. I don't know. This doesn't fantasy wise. This doesn't really move the needle for me in any direction for either team. Yeah, I think this is just kind of like a Mac Hollins replacement. More than anything.
Exactly.
Who also signed with the Patriots? Diami Brown signed 1 year with the Jaguars.
The Mac Hollins might be more than something. Actually, I feel like if anybody, I think for some strange reason, I feel like Mac Hollins on that 8.4 million might be fantasy relevant.
Really?
But not. I can't. I don't know. I do not have enough like stones to actually say that it's definitely happening. But I mean, man, look how bad their receiver core is right now. And at the very least, like Mac Hollins was a veteran, a veteran on a good team that, I could see it happening, just being a good, Mike Vrabel loves his locker room guys. I could just see something happening, but I don't know if it's actually really worth mentioning. So actually, don't even just erase this from the podcast.
and Matt Collins likes to be barefoot as much as possible. So that's anything, if you get any bonus points for playing barefoot.
We're getting his feet, we're gonna get all these Patriots feet pics of his feet in the frozen New England earth.
Yeah, and then Darius Slayton signs 3 years, stay with the Giants. Whoop-de-doo, no big deal. Braxton Berrios, 1 year contract with the Texans, and then Justin Watson also signs with the Texans. That is it for wide receivers, the free agents. Guys, any last words we'd like to say before you sign off tonight?
I wish Darius Slayton could have gone somewhere else, but, is what
Ditto.
it is.
Yeah. I don't know, pretty uninspiring, the last couple guys you mentioned, but yeah.
Yeah, we need some more excitement like we had like on Sunday.
I'll say though, hey, look, Christian Kirk is going to get cut here, so we're gonna get more information on other wide receivers. George Pickens might get traded. Like we might get a little more. Honestly, this has been a much more exciting for how little talent pool we have. I feel like this has been a pretty exciting free agency period.
The first day is always insane.
Yeah.
And hey, you know what? That's all I need. I don't need it to be 3 weeks long. It's fine. I'm getting my little dopamine hit, and we're good. More NFL pumping in my veins. It'll come.
All right, guys. For us here at Absolute Auction, it's good to have you get back on again, Adam.
Thank you.
Mark, good to have you back on, bud. We'll talk more again.
You can't get rid of me.
No, can't get rid of you for sure. And I'm Ryan, and we'll see you guys next time.